Hello, I am Mandisa Johnson with Atlanta Film and TV. Today we're having a conversation with Atlanta-based actress, host, international model, and former Miss Vietnam USA, Isabelle Du. Some of Isabelle's work includes Tresemme, Logitech, and Massimo, and most recently, Poshmark, just to name a few. Hi, Isabelle. How are you today?
Hi, Mandisa. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
I'm glad you could join us. So, can you share with us about who you are and what you do in the film and TV industry?
So, I am an actress, host, and model. And I've been doing on camera work for about 16 years, since 2006. So, it's been a long time. And it's been a cool journey from going from like modeling um, to doing commercial work to doing hosting. And now, like, lived in different places. But where I really fell in love with acting was I started doing soap operas in Vietnam. So I was out there for 4 years and I was like the series lead. I did 40 episodes of a series called New VC, which means female bodyguard.
Okay.
And I had no training, like nothing. Honestly, it was kind of like, when I think about it, it's just kind of crazy how it happened. I was like their third recast, by the way. So they had casted two other actresses. They decided to recast. So I was their third actress for that. We filmed for 5 months. And then I thought, you know what? I really want to take this more seriously. I fell in love with acting, went to LA to do my training. And it's been a interesting journey. And then last year, me and my husband, we relocated to Atlanta. We're in Midtown and we freaking love it. We love Atlanta. So yeah.
Okay. So you said you started in 2006?
hmm
Yeah, that's the year that I started too. And yeah.
That's awesome. So we share the same like industry anniversary.
Right, right. So we're gonna dig a little bit deeper. So you take us on the journey on your journey, like how you started to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in doing on-camera work, but my parents were definitely not for it. I
Right.
think I think especially because, they're immigrants who come over here, they're not familiar with the entertainment industry. They want to go to something more stable, right? They risk their lives like fleeing from a war-torn country. So for them, they're like, let's go to something stable, something that's predictable, something that we understand. Um, and so, went through the motions of going to school and everything. And I went to Chapman for PR and advertising. So that was within the film school.
Mhm.
And I did internships within the entertainment industry. So I interned for like Comedy Central, East True Hollywood Story, Nickelodeon, MTV, and then there was this casting office, Perry Reese Casting. And I'm gonna date myself just a little bit, but it was so crazy because back then all the demo reels were by VHS tapes. So I had to organize everyone's like demo reel tapes like in alphabetical order, like physical VHSs,
Wow.
like go through people's headshots. And it was to think back to it because now I feel like I've really gotten to the groove of being an actor.
Mhm.
It's kind of crazy to think about how much that landscape of auditioning has really changed over the years. And then after I graduated college, I was like, I really just, I want to model. After college, I decided, I really want to model. At that time, I was really passionate about modeling. And a lot of things were kind of stacked up against me. I'm not that tall. Back then, ethnicity wise, we weren't a thing. And I'll tell you, I remember I went to an agency. This is back in Southern California. I remember specifically going to this agency and I looked at their roster. I was like, oh, they don't have anyone that looks like me. Like they had one other Asian girl, but she was more like ethnic Chinese. She had shorter hair, she had bangs, her eyes were different from me. So I felt like, oh, cool. So they don't have a lot of Asian women on their roster. Surely they'd want more, right? I remember going in there and they looked at my portfolio. Like, oh, we like your look, we like your portfolio, but we represent a girl that looks like you.
Mm.
And they literally, and I'll never forget, they literally point to their wall. And it's that one Asian girl that I remember like researching. But then next to her was like 25 other blonde models.
Mm.
And I don't know, that moment stayed with me because I remember thinking, wait, you're going to say no to me because you already filled your quota of an Asian model, but you have all these other blonde models. Anyways, it just stuck with me. And I thought, you know what? I want to model in Asia because I had heard like you can really build your tear sheets and everything. And I figured, well, why not go to a market where everyone's like me, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I fell in love. Like, so my first contract was in Bangkok. And then from there, I modeled in Manila, Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, Hong Kong, China, Vietnam. And I didn't make that much money, truth be told. But at the time of my life, I built a lot of experiences and some friendships for life. People that I'm still in touch with to this day. And it made me really understand what it was like to be like on set, even though it wasn't the same standards as here. I
Mm.
think once you work a market that doesn't have a union that protects you, that really doesn't have a union protect you, and you're working with different backgrounds and even languages that you're not as familiar with, oh man, you're prepared for anything. So from there, I booked that soap opera. That was like nuts because I was supposed to work in Macau the next day for a poker
Mhm.
tour with an agency I'm still with to this day. And I booked the soap opera, and they're like, we need you to work tomorrow. We need you to start training like martial arts. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be in Macau. They're like, we need to talk to your agency. So they bought out my contract. That they bought out my Macau poker tournament contract
Wow.
so I could stay in Vietnam to work the show. And initially it was 3 months and ended up being a 5 month ordeal. At one point they lost 9 days of footage, so we had to reshoot everything. It was like a long tracking shot in the rain and everything.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It was crazy. It was crazy. Huge learning experience for me. And yeah, so series regular. But my work in Asia did not translate in the US.
Okay.
And I think in the US, it's like Hollywood, right? So
Right.
very competitive. Like everyone's on their A game. Like everyone's had their training, and I had to start all over from ground zero.
Wow.
And I remember like doing extra work for $64 for 8 hours on Grey's Anatomy on a non-union set. And I remember like going in there, looking at all the different cream cheeses. Like there was a strawberry cream cheese, there was like your blueberry cream cheese. They had like the non-fat one. And I was like, this is crazy because back when I was working in Vietnam, even though I was like the lead, I had to find my own lunches sometimes.
Wow.
I had to provide my own wardrobe and everything. It was like, anyways, it was kind of like a reverse culture shock a little bit to like start over again and build up again. Nothing is overnight. I feel like this last year I've started to really understand and gain momentum in like the industry. I start to really take things seriously. I start to keep track of my auditions. That made a huge difference. I highly encourage anyone who steps into this industry to really keep a spreadsheet of like all your auditions, like all the casting director offices you've been in, even up to like what kind of roles you're getting called in for, because that gave me a better understanding of how I'm being perceived. So before this, I was kind of like, oh, let me kind of do the typical things. I have a badass headshot. I have the nerdy headshot, I guess, the nerdy, quirky headshot. I have like, the pretty headshot. But now I've really narrowed down and understood like where my essence is,
Mm-hmm.
which is this young professional in a glam industry type. Like I'm going for roles that are like publicist, um, country music record label marketing executive, book publisher, things like that. I know that was kind of a little ramble there, but
And on that note, we're going to take a break, but we'll be right back.
Acting for Beginners
Hey,
Live. Wednesdays, 12 p.m.
do
Eastern.
not just read.
We talk about acting, the do's and don'ts of acting,
Why?
how to get started in
Why
the
can't we
acting
share
industry.
it on social media, Mandisa? Why? Stop it. Stop that emotion.
We also have special guests, casting directors.
Oh, my bad.
Actors.
I'm a very comedic person. My father says that to me
Producers.
sometimes.
That's what I'm doing as a director. I'm not
Directors.
teaching you acting. I'm teaching you how to use the tools that you already got.
Acting for Beginners with Danny.
Acting for Beginners Live.
Acting for Beginners live.
So tune in every Wednesday.
Fire, 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 flames, flames, flames.
Acting for Beginners Live.
See Acting for Beginners anywhere. And my name is not attached. Please let me know.
Acting for Beginners Live. I got you.
Welcome back to Conversations with Atlanta's Movers and Shakers. I am your host, Mandisa Johnson. Today we are having a conversation with actress, model, and host Isabelle Dew.
You have an amazing journey. And yes, I remember before you sent your headshots and stuff electronically. You had to like put them in the big envelope and send them. I think the first time I sent headshots to Tyler Perry Studios, it was packaged like that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
This was back in 2008.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And actually, the casting director called me on the phone. Of course, they don't do that anymore, but she called me on the phone and she wanted to book me for a standing role. None of this ever happened. I got to the studio and they didn't have my name on the list. And of course, I couldn't get in. That happened twice.
Why is that? I don't understand how.
I don't even remember because it was so long ago. I had called her back and told her I was interested and I would be there. I think it was like the following Monday. And my husband and I drove all the way out to Tyler Perry Studios from Conyers, and they wouldn't let me in the gate because my name wasn't on the list. And I was just like, I know returned the call. So it was of course, it was different. You have email now, you can go back and.
It's more streamlined. There's more of a paper trail to kind of keep track of everything.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, you talked about your parents not really like understanding the industry. When did they come into like understanding that this was something that you were going to do?
I don't think if there was ever a true like hard set moment, they're like, oh, I guess she's really in for this now. Because my dad still to this day, he's like, why don't you work for Google? Why don't you work for Facebook? Why don't you work for Apple? I'm like, and do what?
Right. Yeah.
You're just saying a company name because it sounds prestigious, right? I was like, but what if I worked for them on the commercial side? Like, what if that happens? Simu Liu, I don't know if you guys saw, he like has a Google commercial and his parents are in it.
Wow.
And it's so crazy because he actually kind of like mentions like, yeah, my parents were like, why don't you work for like Google? I'm like, oh my gosh, that is literally my parents. Like I think they still don't understand it and they don't realize, but I understand because I feel like they didn't have the privilege and the luxury of understanding what like that art can be its own career and its own business. And I think even a lot of people in this business still don't really grasp that it's a business. They think it's just the arts thing that you can be passionate.
Mm-hmm.
No, like there's a lot of admin to it. I think.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think it's more admin than even just the auditioning piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very important to know the business side of the entertainment industry, which is, well, I'm hosting a workshop to teach parents like some of the entertainment business side of it, because it's not about just, your kid working in front of the camera. There's things that you need to know business wise as a momager. You need to know, this is how you submit. You don't do this. So you're right, it's more than just the art. You have to know the entertainment side, business side. A lot of people don't know that. So
Yes. And I think what happens is people get very emotionally invested in it,
mm-hmm.
and blinders. on them. They get a little tunnel vision, right? They're like, but I've been manifesting this, I've been wishing for this. And I believe in manifestation stuff. But if you don't put in the work and you don't do the business side of it, it's just wishful thinking, you know? It's just like any business, really. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you gotta put in, like, yeah, I wanna make my coffee shop popular. I'm gonna wish it, I'm gonna promote it. Cool, but there's other things to it, right? Like, what's the overhead cost? What's the like, what's your lease like in that location? And are there other competitive, like what's the landscape like for a coffee shop? So those are the things that I think not just actors but anybody in business
Mm-hmm.
have to
Yeah.
really consider, especially for parents of kids. I love that you do that, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's next Saturday. So, yes, thank you. So, you talked a little bit about your modeling overseas. Can you share with us about your experience modeling?
Man, I loved it so much. And now I've been kind of like not model as much because I don't care about it as much as I used to, which is fine because like just like in anything in life, you start to like grow out of things and you start to like kind of move up in different places in your career. So that's how I feel about modeling. But back then, it's a very tough industry,
Yeah.
extremely tough. Like I'm talking like you my contract would say I had certain measurements. So before they invest in me to like fly me out there and everything, they have like measurements on the contract. They weigh me and measure me every week. If I
Wow.
gain an inch above what was contracted, or if I gain a certain amount of weight above my weight, then they deduct my allowance. And you get a weekly allowance, and that allowance is for either money to take a cab or motorbike to your castings or for food. So basically, that's the agency's way of saying, you gained weight? Okay, we're going to deduct your allowance. So you can either choose for food or castings. And of course, you're going to choose for castings because you got to make money to pay
Right.
the agency's investment in you.
Wow.
Um, I don't know. You have to have a very tough self-esteem in it. There were a lot of young girls I was with. I started modeling a lot older. And that was like harsh too, because a lot of people are like, well, you're going to expire soon. I'm like, and it's always coming from people who don't know modeling or the industry. They always say,
Right.
they always make judgments on it, right? And I was modeling with very young girls. I'm talking like 14, 15 from like Lithuania, Romania, and these girls have to grow up real fast. But I give it to them. They're smart cookies, like people have this like impression that models are, they judge them. They judge them. But I tell you, they're clever, clever people because they have to deal with quite a bit and still put on a good front. Yeah. But I
Wow.
think that's what prepared me. I feel like that is what has prepared me mentally for acting.
Right. I can see that. Well, yeah, that's pretty much why I like to stick to like print modeling and not.
Yeah, print modeling is great. It's like I love that with print modeling, it embraces like they want you to just be you. They want you to be every day, and it's relatable, and anyone can do it. Actually, with modeling, really, you can model at whatever age, at whatever size, color, everything, and that's what I love about it. And I think today's definitions of has expanded of what they're looking for in terms of like what they like to see for representation and inclusion. I think that's great. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that you're still in this business. It's so great after all these years.
Yeah, thank you. So, I just learned this the other day. You traveled with your then boyfriend, now husband, during season 25 of Amazing Race and known to fans as that dating couple. Can you please share about that experience? I literally, like, when I was looking you up, I was like, what?
Yeah, I know. I love my husband's so amazing. We met at Chapman, so we met in school, but we were just friends and we didn't reconnect until a lot later. And we auditioned for that show 3 times together. And we were super fans. And I myself had auditioned for that show 5 times, 3 of those with him. And I think even though we didn't win, darn, but we got an amazing experience out of it. Like because you're racing around the world for $1 million, right? And you have like 1 out of 11 chances, which is like, oh my gosh, like this is exciting. And it brought us really close because you're put in very high stress level situations that you'll never experience again. And I think that could either make or break you. And only Dennis and I, and then one other couple were the only couples that are still together to this day from that show,
Oh.
from that particular season, And I think like us not winning brought us really close because what they do is they send you off to like a sequester location. So you don't get to go home right away. They sent us to Portugal. So we spent like almost a month in Portugal, just like being together. And every time a team lost, they would join our little band. And we'd have to like, make them feel better, comfort them, be like, oh, well, we lost 2 weeks ago. We've gotten over it now. you know,
Wow.
they take you around. It's great. So even if you like lose, it's still a great opportunity. You're like, we were like ziplining, touring castles. It was an amazing experience for sure. And yeah, here we are today, married. We're the married couple.
Yeah, right.
We're going to take a break, but we'll be right back.
You ever think we did too much bad stuff to pray?
Down on your knees now! No!
Morning gonna come whether you pray or not.
All right, you boys ready? Ain't no turning back from this.
I mean, how many times have I brought up the idea of you going back to school?
Yeah, those things cost money, all right? Money I don't have. I mean, nobody's gonna give me a loan. I mean, I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, if I need to get some quick cash, could you help me out?
No, I'm not saying no. But Joe, didn't you just get a loan from the bank?
I'm gonna let you cut me in. But I want half.
Come on, Dante, half, man.
I said half, nigga. Did I stutter? You gonna steal from me? You gonna lie to me?
This is day one. We gotta be all in this together. So whatever this is between you two, we need to kill it.
We had a plan, okay? It wasn't my fault.
I don't see we on the news. That's just you. They looking for you.
I know!
My granny watched these streets take all her children. She buried all of them.
I need Harrison Avenue blocks 10 through 14 cleared between 7 and 7:18.
Makes you think I can close down a city block.
Thought this wasn't your style.
Yeah.
Things change. Stakes change.
Coming or what?
I'm running for the mall, running for the gold. I'm speaking from the heart, it's leaking from my soul. These speakers about to blow, about to rock up on the globe. Put the fire in my soul and just tell me where to go. I'm running for the mall, running for the gold.
Welcome back to Conversations with Atlanta's Movers and Shakers. I am your host, Mandisa Johnson. Today, we are having a conversation with actress, model, and host Isabelle Du.
So can you share with us about your time as Miss Vietnam USA?
Yeah, so that was I was working, so I work auto show in addition to my acting. I feel like a lot of actors, we have like the other jobs, right? Some people are doing, serving or hostessing, bartending. And for me, I've done auto show for like 8 years. So I was at the Cleveland Auto Show when my cousin texted me. She's like, this pageant is next week. Like, I really think you have a good chance. And I was like, next week?
Wow.
Usually you have months in preparation. And she's like, no, I know you. She's like, I was like, I don't have gowns. I don't have any of that. She's like, people, you'll get that stuff sponsored. So I actually was able to get my dresses sponsored. And I think interview is where you really win at those things.
Right. Yes.
That's the real thing. Like, yeah, all the nice stuff, the pretty gowns and all that's nice, but it's really where the interview is. And I think that's where everyone should shine anyways, and even in life, right? And I answered my question on stage bilingually.
Okay.
That was very important to me because I want I a lot of people don't think I look Vietnamese.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. I know. Can I tell you how much that bothers me? It bothers me to the core. It bothers me to the core. I'm like, oh, so what do you think Vietnamese people are supposed to look like? You know?
Wow.
I get that a lot. Even in comments publicly, people always think like, they always think I'm part white. I'm like, no, I'm full Asian. I'm proud of it. I can look like this. I don't need to credit anybody else for this. It's my mom and dad. So, people perceive me as like, they think, oh, she can't speak Vietnamese. So I had to answer my question both English and Vietnamese to show that like I'm very proud to be of a bicultural identity. And it's also why I put it in my Instagram, because I want people to understand how proud I am of my heritage. Like, so after this, I get to go to a Thet festival for Lunar New Year. Like, I love going to the Thet festival every year. Because I want people to understand, like, that is my identity. It's who I'm proud of. Because people might not think of that of me right away, but I do want them to associate me with it. So it's kind of cool because with that title, I think it's kind of like solidified people's understanding of how I feel about it. Because before I used to be ambiguous about it. I used to not share my ethnicity. I used to, not that I was embarrassed of it, but I felt like that's what I had to do to be in this industry. I felt like I'll just be kind of like ambiguous about it. I won't say what my actual ethnicity is. I'll say I'm Asian American. So it's kind of like a little bit fluid. But let me tell you, the moment I owned like my heritage, the moment I owned that I am Vietnamese and Chinese, more roles and more castings came to me because I was now being specific.
Wow.
Yes. And even now when Vietnamese roles come up, people always think of me first. It's amazing. And I feel very honored. Even if I don't book it, I feel very honored that people would even consider me, that I'm on top of their mind when it comes to those roles. And I'm like, great. I celebrate that because it's very specific to me. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I knew when you came to the Atlanta Film and TV event, I guess because I'm from the Midwest and, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. And I went to school with like a lot of people from Vietnam and Laos and just from everywhere. It's very diverse. So that's I mean, you have the look, but I will say, just kind of going back to what you're saying about the pageant, you're right about the questions being the most important thing. I've been in a few pageants, really only placed in one, but but when I worked at Disney World, I wore a pin that said I was certified to speak Spanish the first summer. Second summer, I did not wear it because I didn't want people to know I spoke Spanish. People still came to me and spoke Spanish. And I'm like, how do you know? And they were like, it's your skin, it's your hair. I'm like, I'm Native American and Black. But yeah. So I get what you're saying.
And it's like Dominicans, right? Like my Dominican friends, they're Afro Latinos, Latinas, and they speak Spanish. And people don't expect that from them. Why? Because the way Hollywood has portrayed Dominicans are usually actually probably more Mexican. That's their idea. And now audience receive that, right? They're like, oh, that is what Dominican is. That is what Dominican is. They don't associate it with, So when they see Vietnamese characters being portrayed on screen, sometimes they're not even Vietnamese, but they fit the idea of what are usually these like, white decision makers have decided is what looks like in their eyes is Vietnamese.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I've seen that too, where I just think it's amazing how diverse, especially African Americans, you can look like me. I could have been Spanish, but I'm not. Um, but it's just amazing to see how like the different looks, and then you hear people speaking Spanish, because even when I worked in Florida, I saw all the diversity or whatever. Yes. Um, so can you talk to us about how you advocate for diversity and inclusion in mainstream media?
Oof. Oof. That is an amazing and question to kind of go through. I think that is something that has always been something I've talked about all the time, like from day one, being proud of your heritage, be proud of it, and don't shy away from it. And I can tell even from my fellow Asian American community members, like, and so much, right? Nothing's overnight with that one, I think. I highly encourage different, like that has always been my thing from day one. Like anyone who knows me, even from like in high school, I was like president of like the Vietnamese Sisterhood Association, Asian Pacific Student Association College. It's always been my thing to like really be excited and really showcase like diverse talent, particularly for the Asian American community, because that is something that like really resonates with me. And growing up, I barely saw anyone on TV.
Wow.
Barely. And if I did, I knew all of them. And even if I saw a background actor who's Asian, can I tell you, I was so excited. I'd be like, oh my
God. Right. Yeah.
It's an Asian kid right there by the lock. Good for you. Good for you. You know, that's how I felt as a kid. And I think nowadays people are much more like proactive about it. Like we are now very connected, so we're constantly sharing content about projects. And I think what's really important is our communities have got to be excited for each other. None of this scarcity mindset. Just because I have some friends where they're like, oh, I decided to not go with that agency because they already have one other Asian girl.
Oh.
No, stop. You can't have that mindset.
Right.
My LA agency represents all Asians, actually. That's their whole thing. They've been that. And I'm so proud to be with that agency because they are the go-to agency when it comes to Asian talent. And I don't think, oh, I'm competing with her. I don't know, because guess what? If you think that, if you feel like I'm going to compete with this person within my same agency, you're still going to compete with them even outside your agency.
Right. Yes.
Because you can get representation, you're going to still have the same audition. So it makes no sense to me. Don't worry about that. Worry about yourself. If anything, when you cheer on for your fellow members in these diverse communities and you celebrate each other, whether that's posting like, sharing something on their story, like, oh my gosh, like I just shared like my friend Artemis. She's recurring on Sweet Magnolias on Netflix.
Okay.
And I'm so excited for her because I met her as a kid back in LA.
Wow.
I met her as a kid. So she's been in this for so long, and she's also based in Atlanta, and she's recurring on she was on Stargirl, and now she's on Sweet Magnolias. Like it's so exciting. You got to cheer each other on because that creates a momentum. You want to know each other because there's going to be more projects that's going to have more cast. And I understand the scarcity mindset because we're so used to the idea of like, oh, they only have one Asian person, so they're not going to cast another one. It's going to be too many on the screen. They're going to be threatened by too many of us, right? But now it's getting much more embraced. Great, finally, where look, even if you don't book that role is going to have family members that's of that ethnic group, or friends of that ethnic group, whatever. So like, let's be excited for each other. And the more we're excited for each other, the more camaraderie we have within our communities. It's like people see it, they feel it. I don't even know how it is. It's just this, it just becomes this like snowball of energy.
Right. Yes.
And I also think we have to recognize our own biases and our internalized racism. And I have to admit to some of mine as well. Like sometimes I think, oh, I'm pretty like aware. No, sometimes I catch myself. I'll give you an example. Like this past year, there was a Lifetime film, Lifetime or Hallmark, one of those. And at the time, me and my friend, she's also Vietnamese as well, and we were auditioning for the same project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, "Oh, did you hear anything? Didn't hear anything?" And then, well, in the breakdowns, there was like family members of the lead character. Because this is Hallmark or Lifetime, we're very used to white characters being the lead.
Right.
We're very used to that, right? I always assume they're white. It's just my assumption. It's just like a built-in assumption. Oh, the leads, the guy and the girl, they fall in love, small town, city, one's a city person, one's a small town girl, and they get together at the end of the film, and they're always white, right? And they have their white families. And you might have like ethnic supporting characters, like the sassy best friend, da 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 da. That's kind of the formula. So then our agents reach out like, hey, we need the family members, the cousin and the brother or whatever, they need to be Asian. They need to be Asian. We need our Asian actors to audition for this right away. Same project. We're like, oh. And can I tell you, my first thought was, oh, maybe they decided they needed to add more diversity. So maybe they have adopted family members that are Asian now, right? Because why else would the brother and the cousin be Asian of a white couple? Like,
right.
They're probably adopted. Maybe that's a storyline because I've seen that happen, right? No, I found out it's because the lead character was played by an Asian actress, Christine Ko, who's a fantastic actress. And I had to like recalibrate a little bit. I was like, oh my God, of course she has Asian family members because she's Asian.
Right.
That's the most logical reason, right? But that was not my first instinct in this industry. My first instinct was, oh, well, they're definitely white. There's no way. There's the only reason why they're Asian is because they're adopted. That's the only explanation for that. Not because, no, she actually is Asian. So I had to debunk that for myself even last year. And it shows how many years have compounded of like what we've been fed by this narrative, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said, even when you were saying how you would watch a film and you would say there was one like Asian background actor. It's the same. I don't know if you've seen the movie Encanto, where there's a lot. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Really good things about it, but I haven't seen it.
Yes, I haven't watched the full thing, but there's this little boy character, and I was like, that looks like my nephew. And I sent it to my sister, and she said she's been getting that a lot with the curly hair and even the same complexion. And then there's another little boy on Instagram who thought it was him, and I said that's so cool that now we're starting to get these cartoons where our children can look at it and kind of relate to the characters. So I completely understand.
Sharing that, I love that. And you know why that's so important for like, it's so important for kids to see characters that look like them, because if we keep telling kids you can be whatever you want to be, you could be whoever you want to be, but they're not actually seeing it, it's a hard sell actually. They actually work twice, 3 times, 4 times harder to really believe what we're telling them, that you can be whatever you want to be, even though you don't see it.
Right.
You have to work that much harder to believe it, you know?
So how have things changed for you since COVID?
I know COVID and the pandemic has been a very tough time for a lot of people, and I have to acknowledge that and recognize that. I think what the pandemic has shown me is shown me a big pivot of what, because during this time I didn't work a lot. Like I wasn't on set, and then there was no auto shows. But it showed me what life would be like if I didn't have, say, my supplemental job. Like what would, because when you're doing auto show, it's a lot of traveling. Like I'm about to do a big work trip in Chicago. So I'm gonna be in Chicago like almost a whole month, basically. And it's a lot of traveling, and then scheduling is tough, like you might have conflicts with shoots and things like that. And then as a recovering people pleaser, I feel like I'm disappointing like several parties if I have to say no to something. So because I didn't have that, I had all this time to really focus and hone in on my acting. It was all I did. And I saw huge, immense growth. So last year was my first time booking my first network co-star for General Hospital. And so, yeah, thank you. And then my second co-star for Fox, which I can't wait to share. That will come out later this year. But that co-star in December turned recurring. So I saw what it felt like. What would happen if I invested 100% of my energy into this thing rather than being so scattered and like dividing up my attention? Which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I do believe like we wear a lot of different hats and that's great. But I think for me, because I have a very hard time concentrating actually, that it was really cool to see what it would be like if I just focus on one thing. What would that look like? And it gave me a taste of that. Now I understand when they say the way you do one thing is how you do everything. Now I'm kind of like, oh, that's cool to see. Like, and also during the pandemic, I made this YouTube video on selling online. So I sell a lot on eBay, Poshmark, things like that, right? I made this fun little video. I was like, oh, I made $1,200 this month during the pandemic selling so all random things like home catalogs you get for free through the mail. I sold like empty shopping bags, things like that, and made $1,200 just selling online. And that video didn't go viral. Okay, it's just I threw it up on YouTube. Has 400 views. A friend of mine that I met through modeling years ago, back in 2007, she now works for Poshmark, and she's part of the marketing team. She saw that video, presented to the marketing team, and long story short, they booked me for the Poshmark commercial.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Thank you. Isn't it? It's crazy, right? It's just like so many full circle moments of like, and I was selling online. That started because when I first came back to LA from Asia, I had like my credit card debt and my student loan debt, and the debt was really like weighing on me. So I was like, let me just sell whatever I have. So, and then I just became obsessed with it. It became like my fun hobby. Now I just love doing it for fun. And but to think this little video with just 400 views became this like commercial that like now plays like nationally everywhere. So,
I see it all. I see it all the time, like multiple times a day. I'm like, well, there she goes.
That's so awesome. And thanks for telling me, because you were the first one to tell me about that, and I didn't know it was airing at the time. So yeah.
I just so happened I was watching cartoons with my youngest, and I was like, is that? I was like, that sure is her. That's when I messaged you. I was like, are you in a Poshmark?
I know my agent just texted me. He's like, I see you. I just saw your Poshmark commercial. I see it all the time. I'm like, yay, thank you.
So you didn't have to you didn't have to audition for it. You just based on that's the kind of things that I try to tell people, of course. And that kind of ties into my next question, like the building relationships and networking. Like, how can you talk to us about that? Like, you know, we're really big on building relationships and networking. How is it for you, even though you just shared that? But like, can you talk to us like what kind of things, if you have any other things that have come out from like building relationships and networking?
Yeah, and Mandisa, I have to say, you're excellent at that. You're like
excellent.
Last time when I went to your event, it was so much fun, and I loved
thank you.
meeting, because I had just gotten to Atlanta, and it was just so fun meeting everyone in person. You know, I think with networking, nothing's overnight. Just
right.
like things. So I think people should never go into networking thinking like, I'm gonna get something out of this right away. Like, no, I think just do as you do. Like, find people you gravitate towards. Find people you like genuinely have a connection with. You just gravitate towards them for whatever reason because you connect with something outside of this industry, and that's going to help a lot, right? Definitely not having some sort of, I guess, goal necessary. I think of networking as just, I don't know, networking is a hard thing for me to say. I just think of it like making friends.
Right.
Friends, because like that friend that booked me through that Poshmark commercial, I mean, I met her back in 2007.
Wow.
Right? So that's how many years, right? Like that's so many years between that time. And but I will say, like, because the longer you get to know someone, the longer you get to know someone, the more you connect with them, whether that's through social media or wherever, they start to be familiar with you. They get to know your energy. They get to like you more. And that's what you want, because people want to work with people. They want to collaborate with people that they like and they connect with.
Right.
They just do.
Yeah, that's so true. I've gotten a few things. I do not like auditioning, but if I have to, I will. I talk about that a lot. But I've gotten, before the pandemic, I've did 3 things without auditioning for them. Yeah. And it was basically, the first thing was, it was a commercial, and a parent that I knew, that her daughter was in the marching band with my son. We're friends on Facebook. They our kids both went to Europe for with the band, and
Nice.
she reached out to me on Facebook. She was like, I know you have your blog, but do you act? I was like, of course. She was like, we're looking for people through my advertising agency for this commercial. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, but I don't have any recent headshots because my hair was much shorter than it is now. And she just went on Facebook, pulled a selfie, and she emailed me back 2 days later. It was like, you booked it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So
That's so awesome.
right.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So it's always, you're right. It is about building relationships and networking. And even, there's one girl that I've known for years. We connected, and I've worked with her on a few things, never asked her for anything. And then during the shutdown, I sent her my animation, all 9 episodes, and it got shopped around. Didn't get picked up yet, but it did get shopped around to some major networks. So yeah.
That's so awesome, because there's still traction there, right? And people want to help other people that they like too.
Right. Yeah.
That's a piece of it, like they just do. They just naturally they want to see you win.
Right.
The people who are most excited for you, those are the people that, like, you're going to come up together, and those are the people where there's going to be future collaborations, and you might not be able to foresee what those exact collaborations are, but there will be that. There's just no other way around it. And it's really cool. I use We Audition a lot.
Okay.
For my auditions, like for my virtual readers, because sometimes what's hard for me is I don't always have an in-person reader. My husband does not read for me. He hates it, and then I hate it because he hates it. So I don't enjoy my auditioning when I read with him, and I use We Audition, and I love it because sometimes I have to work on my sides after a long day of work. Like recently, I had a 10-page audition, but I had to work auto show in Vegas, so I needed a reader at 1 a.m. I jumped on there, and I've made a lot of cool friends from that group.
Wow.
Like, and friends from everywhere. Like, not just Atlanta or LA. I'm talking from like the UK, from Canada. And I've met up with some people in person.
Wow. So it's We Audition.
We Audition.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a few groups where some people are always looking for a reader. Maybe I'll recommend that. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up myself.
Yeah. I wish I had a code to share. I'm supposed to get a code so then I can share a code with you guys.
Okay.
Because it is like, it's like 25% off for people. And so I pay about, I want to say like $7-8 a month.
Okay.
But I offer myself as a reader. And I used to offer myself just for free with tips, because I understand everyone has different budgets,
Mm-hmm.
And what was cool about that is when you read for people, you actually get better as an actor.
Right. I can see that.
Real fast. Right? They're like, they booked you for 15 minutes. Here's a 1 page. You have to jump into that scene real fast. So my cold reading skills got better. I also had a better understanding of like what projects are like being casted right now. And then I got to meet cool people and people with different training.
Oh, yes.
Right? So what's cool is I got to see some really cool people work, and I'm like, wow, I really like how they did that. I'm going to try to incorporate that with my audition next time. it's like really cool to watch him. And I fangirled a little bit because there was one actor that like I like knew, and I was like I watched him as a teenager, right? And he
Wow.
and I was like fangirling hard. I texted my husband. I was like, I'm reading a little. So and so booked me. He's like, no way. And then he hears his voice. He's like, oh my god, I can't believe he booked her. I was like, and to watch him, it was like cool because it's just one-on-one. And to watch him work, I was so impressed. I was like, this is why he's working after. And it like it's hard if you can't take all the classes and work with all the coaches in the world. But what if you worked with other people who did work with all those coaches in schools?
Right.
You
Yeah.
get to some of those from them.
Wow. I never thought about it like that. That's cool. I'll have to. We audition. Okay.
Yeah, and the I know the co-founder now. Like he's a really cool guy. His name is Darren. Like they are the guys that run Darren and Rich who run the website. Like they're so approachable. They're all about the community. They're all about the acting community, no matter where you are. And it's really cool how they want to see people win. And all my auditions that I've booked, like for General Hospital, for that Fox co-star that turned recurring, I have a TV One Lifetime film that's coming out. All that I booked with a We Audition reader.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you share with us a piece of advice for someone who may want to pursue a career in film and TV?
I think definitely just jump right into it. Take classes. I know they're probably tired of hearing that, but it's true. And the reason why you should take classes is because you want to be around your other actors. You want to start, in order to be in this industry, you got to have other actor friends. You got to have your actor tribe. And those are the people that are going to grow with you. They just are. And you got to celebrate them with them. You got to be excited for them because those are the people who are going to be your biggest allies and biggest supporters. And you're going to pick up so many things. I also highly encourage listening to certain podcasts. So let's see. I've just started getting to A Slate of Mine, and it's Allison Hazelton. I think she's actually with my same agency with Ursula Weidman, Models and Talent. Slate of Mine. I love that. I've been binging her podcast. Audrey Helps Actors.
Mm-hmm.
Really great podcast. She really talks about the business of acting. And jumping into Clubhouse. If you know Clubhouse, there's 2 rooms I love going to, which is the business side of acting and then Actors Breakfast Club. So the Actors Breakfast Club, they do it at 10 a.m. Eastern time and then 7 a.m. Pacific time. And then at nighttime, I can't remember what time it is, but they have great moderators who are working actors. And you feel like you're listening into some great conversations. And they're live and there's not always replays. And I've gotten some great nuggets from that. But you got to surround yourself with those conversations. And if you're starting out, it's okay that you're not getting auditions. So, because some of the other work is not all auditioning. It's like watching shows and understanding what shows could you possibly exist on and targeting those casting directors and getting the tone of the show. And then, I mean, there's so much for a beginner.
Right. No, you're right. And I actually did a blog 2019. I can't remember the name of it. It might have been the top 5 podcasts for actors. And I remember that's when I learned about Audrey Helps Actors, her podcast. So yes, great. What am I trying to say? She has great content for actors. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's content that like I wish more people would share. I think they kind of are now, right? Kurt Yu's another great one. He has Acting Career Center YouTube channel.
Kurt Yu,
and he's also an Atlanta-based actor.
Right. Yes.
He was in Cobra Kai, Black Widow. I love his YouTube channel too. He gives some great stats because a lot of content that we see is either for super beginners, right, where they're like, I don't know how to do my headshot. And then you also have like the famous actors where Meryl Streep, it's like, but then you have like what I like to call like the middle class of actors
Right.
who are kind of in between, right? Like you're beyond the beginning level, but you're not necessarily like Hollywood celebrity royalty here. So you're kind of in between. And I feel like these podcasts and these YouTube channels cater to that group. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. So how can people connect with you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram. That's probably what I use the most. I know everyone's like, go on TikTok. And I'm like, oh. I mean, on TikTok, yeah. I mean, I post mostly my dogs. So my Instagram at Isabelle.do, ISABELLE.du.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Conversations with Atlanta's Movers and Shakers.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time.